Good morning, internets. It is Friday morning and he made it. Survived. We all made it to Friday. So now I just got to get through the day and then it'll be something resembling the weekend. This morning in Las Vegas, it is 56 degrees and I started out this morning with a range of 35 miles on the 2012 Chevy Volt Premium in battery only mode. I am beginning to think that everybody else's batteries are connected to the temperature and mine is somehow not. Because some days it's been right around 55 degrees every morning and the range keeps changing every morning by 1 or 2 miles in either direction, which I find to be pretty interesting. But I still have been enjoying hearing everybody else's data and learning about everybody else's cars. It's just been very educational, so please keep those numbers coming. This morning I want to talk about a couple of things. I have two different viewers with two different questions, but both are around the Chevy Volt, so I want to answer you both. So, and I hope I'm saying this right, Varun, V-A-R-U-N, Varun, I'm hoping I'm not butchering that, please forgive me if I am. He wants to know if the Volt really is an electric car because it does have a onboard gas generator. He asked a couple of detailed questions about that. Number one, do you consider the Volt to actually be an electric car? Yes, I do, and here's why. The main source of power for this car is electricity. Even when the car is running using gasoline, it's burning that gasoline in order to generate electricity. The onboard generator is not a motor in the traditional sense. It does not make power and then send that kinetic power to the wheels. Rather, it makes electricity and sends that electricity to the electric motor, which then spins the electric motor, which then sends kinetic energy to the wheels. Therefore, it's not an electric gasoline hybrid in the traditional sense. It works more like a freight train, which is, even while the freight trains are burning diesel, those are diesel generators that make electricity and send electricity to the wheels. So while it is not zero emissions, yes, I do consider it an electric vehicle, and so does Chevy. Chevy does not consider it to be a typical hybrid. They call it an extended range electric vehicle. Some people would disagree with that, but since what is powering the vehicle and moving the vehicle forward is always electricity, no matter whether that electricity comes pre-stored in the battery pack or whether my battery is flat and I'm having to use the onboard generator, it's always running on electricity. Therefore, I consider it to be an electric car. In this context, electric car just doesn't mean absolutely zero emissions. But in this case, it also means far less emissions than a regular gasoline vehicle. So that's what I think there. Varun also asked, should the Volt qualify for EV charging? What if somebody made, I'm paraphrasing here, but he said, what if somebody made a very angry video about seeing your Volt in a charging parking spot using charging and they were driving a Nissan Leaf and they had a flat battery? You could drive away and they couldn't. You know, I must confess, I hadn't given this huge amounts of thought. I figured since my car could charge, that it should charge. And I'm not the only sort of plug-in hybrid, if you will, and I don't like that word, but I'm not the only plug-in hybrid that I've seen at charging stations. You know, I've seen the plug-in Ford Fusion hybrid at a lot of the stations, casinos, charge points, and things of that nature. And man, ain't nobody want to let you on the freeway. You need to calm down, Honda. Calm down. Everybody merges. All right, I'm over it. But you know, he makes a good point. Should I be taking up space in an electric vehicle charging station if, you know, there are pure EVs out there that don't have the option of an extended range, you know, gas generator on their vehicle, and, you know, they might be stuck while I'm taking up space. And so, you know, that's something to consider. If there's only one EV charge station in a place, then I might just go park in a regular parking space. And I really appreciate you bringing that to my attention, because that's something that I might have been thoughtless about the needs of others, and been selfish about my ability to charge someplace. And I could have screwed up somebody's day. So I'll be more considerate of that in the future. And this is one of the reasons that I really like this open dialogue with you guys, because, you know, opinions change and information changes, and this has helped to further shape my worldview through the lens of an electric vehicle owner. But if there's a place with more than one EV charge station and then they're all taken up, I don't have a problem plugging in and charging. because in this case, it's not just because it's the dire need to get somewhere, but I prefer to run on battery only rather than gas. Not only does it save me money, but it does save emissions, and that is important to me. Varun also asked me, would I consider a pure EV with no onboard gas generator? I would at some point, but here is the reason that I drive this car. One, I could afford it. Barely, but I could afford this one. Pure electric vehicles tend to cost a bit more. I mean, I'm even talking about the Nissan Leaf. I couldn't afford one of those at the time, and I still can't. So that's one thing. Two, I live in Las Vegas. I have family in Los Angeles, which is a 4-hour drive away, and I have family in Reno, which is a 7 to 9 hour drive away, depending on road conditions, construction, and traffic. And it's not feasible for me to always get on an airplane and go, and once I get to those places, you know, I need my car to drive around, and I can't afford a rental. So road tripping seems to be the only option when it comes to seeing my family. This car, I don't have to stop and charge on that road trip. I can just go. And so for that reason, something, you know, the extended range EV really matters a lot to me. You know, I have my grandmother in LA, and I want to be able to go see her and go check on her when I need to, when I want to. I have my dad and one of my sisters and my brother up in Reno. You know, I've got my other sister in LA. She lives in a completely different part of it, but you know, I've got family. I don't have a lot of family, but you know, that's just, those are the people that I have, and they're important to me. And it's important to me that if something happens, to be able to get in my car and just drive. And I know that sounds a little vague, but over the last couple of years, we've had a unbelievable streak of bad luck and tragedy, and there have been times when I needed to take off and just go and take care of my family, and that is a thing that I can do in this without having to stop and charge like I would in a pure electric vehicle. If I were fortunate enough to own, you know, something like a Tesla, I would have to stop and you know, or a Nissan Leaf, or you know, I would have to stop and I would have to charge. I wouldn't be able to just do the trip completely. I'm kind of half in and half out of the EV lifestyle, and I realize that. And the reason for that is that I live in such a big state and my family is so scattered. You know, Nevada is the 7th largest state in the union. And in a country that has 50 states, that's saying something. It's a pretty big place out here, and it's a lot of big open space. And the vast majority of Nevada is empty. It's empty space. It's empty space without charge stations. A lot of the places I like to go are very out in, you know, the backwoods. I like to be out in the middle of the desert. I like to be out in the middle of nowhere. And out in the middle of nowhere is not at this time the habitat of an electric vehicle. They are making some electric vehicles which are SUVs, and they insist to have all the range that you're going to need. But I live in a place where if you get stranded out here, you better know what you're doing. And, you know, fortunately I do have that training, but I don't want to have to use it out in the middle of Nevada. So those are my reasons there for driving the extended range EV. Would I consider a pure electric vehicle someday? Yes, I absolutely would. If, you know, a bunch of things in my life would have to change. If I found myself with the means to buy a plane ticket when I need to, like at a moment's notice, to just, you know, have a credit card that I can put it on, or have cash in hand, like I can buy a plane ticket and just get to my family if I need to. And that was, you know, the lifestyle that if I was of those means, absolutely I would consider a pure electric vehicle for my day-to-day. Pure electric vehicles have a lot more range than this does on EV only mode. And you know, what of those would I consider? Okay, yes, there is the Tesla. You know, we have the Tesla factory up north that makes batteries and all kinds of other things. You know, Tesla has put a lot of money into my home state, and I would love to have a Tesla. In lieu of a Tesla, for some reason I couldn't get one, or it didn't suit my needs. I mean, it would be hard for me to get away from the freedom of the hatchback, guys. I really, really love my hatchback. I love all the things that this car can do for me. I know it's shaped like a dorky cheese wedge, but what comes with that is some really incredible cargo space, which I have to use pretty often. So if my means changed, I would guess it would mean that my line of work changed. And if my line of work changed, then perhaps my lifestyle would change, where I didn't always need all of that cargo space. If I could have maybe, you know, keep the Volt for days when I need to move things around, a lot of cargo. What could I have a pure electric vehicle that I could just kind of drive around for either pleasure or, you know, my daily getting around needs? And what would that car be? You know, the Nissan Leaf is really cool, but in Fantasyland, where I had all of the money, I like the BMW i8. I do. I think it's a sexy car. It's really, really good looking. I know it goes fast. I love the aerodynamic design of the thing. It's just really beautiful. I've seen them around town in a couple of different colors, and every time I get like major drool factor, like, oh God, I want that car so bad. I actually was at I can't remember where it was months ago. I was at a grocery store and we saw one like parked in the grocery store, and we were able to get a shot of my Volt in the background through the vent of the i8, you know, those side vents that they have. And you can go back on Instagram and see that. It was just, I just love them. They're just really, really beautiful. I love the design. Fully impractical for what it is I do every day. It doesn't make any sense for me to have one. It doesn't have enough room for all the things that I want. But God damn, do they look good to drive. It looks like a blast. It looks like a lot of fun, all of the fun of a sports car without any of the noise. I realize a lot of my car guys out there really enjoy the noise. And I do too. But there's something novel and exciting about the idea of that kind of speed sort of being almost stealth. I like that. I like that car a lot. And I would, oh man, if I could afford one, I'd own one in a heartbeat. And if I had the room to park it. Right now, we only have room for one electric vehicle in our garage, and the other spot has the truck in it. And that, you know, again, this is if all of the means changed, I would have a much bigger garage, and I would, you know, one section of the garage would just be workshop for working on the truck, or working on maybe a Mustang, or working on something old and cool, because Rob and I like to work on things that are old and cool. And then the other sections would be for, you know, EVs and hybrids. You know, that's my fantasy. So those are the things that it would take. So those are my answers to Varun. I hope I got all of your questions answered there, and that I did not butcher your name. Now, to the skunk, who asked me, he has been considering buying a Volt for some time, but he has a problem. He says he lives in an apartment, and not only does he live in an apartment, but there's no garage. And not only is there no garage, but there's not even any assigned spaces where he can maybe finagle a way to get a charge cable out to his Volt. And should he buy a Volt anyway? And could he then charge the Volt in mountain mode, etc., etc.? As much as it pains me to say this, Skunk, given that situation, I would not recommend the Chevy Volt. You get your maximum utility out of this car when you can charge it overnight. And filling the battery, I have found on my power bill where I live in Southern Nevada, everybody has different electric rates all around the country. This is just for my situation. I find that it costs me about $1 a day to fill up my battery. And that does more than half of my daily commute. And on the weekends, it takes care of all of my needs for $1. And I would burn a lot more than that in gasoline. Here's the thing, when the battery runs flat on this thing, in mountain mode won't really charge it all of the way up. And if it does, the car has to be in motion in order to do it. So it's burning gasoline to generate enough electricity to move you forward, but it's also burning gasoline to generate enough electricity to charge the battery, and it's doing those both at the same time. So your efficiency goes way, way, way down. And all of a sudden, you're not really getting any better mileage than a Toyota Prius, which would probably get maybe even better mileage if what you were doing was running it in mountain mode all the time to try to charge the battery, and then turning mountain mode off. And then, of course, when you turn mountain mode off and you've got your half full battery, you're driving around on that. But it's much less efficient to generate that electricity with gasoline than it is to plug it in. And so given that setup, I personally would not recommend it. The first 3 days that I had the Volt, I didn't have a place to charge it. Our garage was not set up for it. We bought the Volt. The morning that I woke up, the day that I bought the Volt on October 12th, I had no intentions of purchasing a car that day. I did not know what my situation was with the Volkswagen. I had no idea. The Volkswagen started making some really scary noises, and some really scary vibrations were coming out of it. And I took it to Jason at Jason at All European Auto. That's my dude. If you drive a European car and you live in Las Vegas or anywhere in the Southern Nevada area, go there if you drive a European car, because they will not give you any crap. And Jason took a look at it, and he looked at the Passat a couple of times before, and he goes, your motor's done. Your motor's done. You replace the camshaft, you replace the turbo, and all that's great, but the tunnel, the cam tunnel itself is in really bad shape due to the old bad camshaft. It had already worn a broken channel into your motor, and now your new camshaft has settled into that channel, and it's not going to work. It needs a new motor. And I said, what do I do? And he said, well, we cleared all the codes on it, and you take it to CarMax and try to get it traded in immediately before it throws any of these codes again. We'll put some super sticky oil in it and hope for the best. And that was a mechanic that I trusted. I knew that he knew what he was doing. And when he told me, he goes, you don't want to sell this car to just an average civilian on the street, because you're then saddling somebody with it. Go trade it in at a dealership. They'll figure out it's a lemon after they give you a trade-in on it, and they'll part it out. And that's just what it is. And I know you're not ready to incur a car payment, but you're also not ready to incur the cost of basically replacing the motor on this car. If we replace the motor on your Passat, yeah, it'll run forever, but you're going to spend 5 times the value of the vehicle just getting it running again. You need to go get a new car, and you need to do it now. I had not thought about electric cars. I had not thought about replacing my car. I had not thought about any of that stuff. I just went home, went on the CarMax website, applied for financing, got approved, and went to CarMax. And I was actually looking for a Honda Fit, because again, I needed the hatchback. I really wanted the cargo space. I wanted something that I could move people around in and that got good mileage, and I wanted something reliable after getting out of the Passat, which was, it wasn't any of those things. And it broke my heart because I loved the car. So we're walking up and down the aisles, and Rob pointed out the Volt. I didn't really acknowledge it at all, but he points at it, he goes, that's a Chevy Volt, and they're awesome. And I was like, what's a Volt? Is that like a Spark? Like, I had no idea about any of it. We stand there talking a minute, and it turned out the salesman didn't know anything about it either. He said, oh yeah, it's a hybrid, and you can plug it in, but you don't ever have to. And I was like, oh, okay, cool, because I live in a condo, and my garage is full of stuff right now. And we actually got the car home before realizing that it really needed to be plugged in. Like, that's how fast this happened, guys. And like, in the car world, you don't ever want to admit ignorance, because car dudes are brutal. But that's honestly what happened. And we get home and realize, oh, okay, we do a little more reading, and yeah, these things are really reliable. And, you know, while we were working out the financing and paperwork and stuff, I was looking up the car online and reading about it. But what I was reading was reviews, and I was trying to find people who had bad things to say about it. And I couldn't find anybody who had anything bad to say about the car. And I was finding all of these things where people were getting hundreds of thousands of miles out of these things. And the reason is because electric motors are reliable, and because the gasoline generator is never under load. Like, it's just plugging along at really low RPM, never really tiring itself out. You're never putting serious pressure on any of the gaskets or seals. It's just making it runs like a generator. And if you have ever lived in a rural area where you've used generators before, or you've gone out camping and brought a generator with you, or you have a camper with a generator, you know how, like, really reliable they are, and how a generator works. And so given all those factors, it seemed like a really good thing for me to buy the car. And then we get home and realize, okay, well, we need to clean out the garage and make room for it, and we did, and then we plugged it in, and it's been great ever since. But would I want to drive around my Volt in gas mode only for basically an indefinite period of time? I really wouldn't. You know, when I go up to Reno, I don't have a place to plug it in, and I drive it around in gas mode all the time, and I get, you know, right around 44 miles a gallon, which is great mileage, really, for a drive around town car. Terrible mileage for an electric car. So as much as it pains me, Skunk, and you've been one of my best supporters and one of my best fans, and your comments are great, and I would love to see you in a Volt. If your present living situation doesn't allow for it, I would suggest something else. And I hate to send anybody to Prius, but the Prius is a true hybrid where the gas motor actually does send kinetic energy to the wheels, and it works in concert with the electric system to give you the best mileage possible, and that's what they're for. You will have the cargo space available of this. They make the Prius in a whole bunch of different sizes now. They just come out with a complete new redesign on the Prius, which means the used ones are even cheaper than before. And it's they're good cars. People make fun of them a lot. I know Parker has a lot of terrible things to say about the Prius because he's a gigantic whiner. But they're not bad cars. It's Toyota. It starts up every time you put the key in it. What else do you want? Like, it gets great mileage. It's extremely reliable. They're fairly cheap to insure. You do get the tax break for buying one. What's the problem? Like, I mean, if you can take your ego out of the equation and not get all hung up on the Prius having the reputation as the world's biggest dorkmobile, and just deal with the fact that everybody else is cranky because they spend too much on gas, so they want to make fun of your Prius, buy a Prius. Like, there's nothing wrong with that car. And that would be my recommendation. And they've been out long enough now that shops know how to work on them. It's easy to get them serviced. If for some reason the battery pack goes dead on those things, they then become absolutely worthless Kelly Blue Book value. But there is a company in California that will sell you a battery, like a brand new battery refurbished kit, where you can just go into the cargo hatch and open it up, get into the battery, replace all the cells yourself. The job takes about 2 hours, and you can follow the instructions and do it yourself. It's not that hard. And then you have a brand new battery on a car that you paid basically nothing for. The kit itself costs about $1,000. And you could pick up a dead battery having Prius for also about $1,000, and then all of a sudden you've got a car that's worth probably around 8 or 9 that you've only spent $2 grand on. And I mean, there's a lot of different options with those that aren't options in the Chevy Volt and aren't options in a lot of other cars. So, give that some thought. I know this has been a lengthy video this morning, but when you guys ask me questions, I really like to do my best to answer them. And I got 2 really good sets of questions last night from both Varun and Skunk, and I told you guys I'd answer them today, and I wanted to keep my promise. So, love you guys bunches, and I hope everybody's having a really great Friday. And I think that's going to about do it for me, guys, because this is actually most of my commute to work has been this video. So, I'm feeling pretty good about that. Thanks for spending the morning with me. So if you've enjoyed watching this, thank you so much. Please consider subscribing right over here, and don't forget to hit that notification bell because I do post often, and you're going to want to hear about it. Here's some other videos we think you'll enjoy right down here. My name is Catherine with EVs of Nevada. I hope everybody's having a really great day, and please don't forget, like, subscribe, and smile.